If you were to disappear tomorrow, would the world miss you, or would it just go on as before?
Think about it coldly. How many people you've known have already died? How many of them are still actively alive inside you? Not as a vague memory, but as a real, active presence. Almost none. Even the most important ones fade, their features blur, their voices silenced, and all that's left are fragile fragments that time soon pulverizes. That's what will happen to you, to me, to all of us. Believing you're special isn't just an illusion, it's an anesthetic to endure the fact that we are easily replaceable. Look at any cemetery, rows upon rows of names lovingly etched on a gravestone. One day they were smiling children, young lovers, people with plans. Now they are just letters worn away by the wind. No one stops at every grave to cry. Life doesn't stop, not even for a second. The world has learned to turn this unbearable truth into a profitable product. The "you are unique" industry is the largest invisible business on the planet. It needs you to feel that there is a purpose reserved just for you, that there is something intrinsically original about your existence. Mark Fisher would call this emotional capitalism. It profits while you struggle to feel different in a sea of equals. But the reality is more cruel. What you feel has already been felt millions of times. What you think has already been thought. Your tears have no signature. Cioran wrote that it's not the pain that annihilates us, but the meaning we try to give it. And the truth is that meaning rarely survives the next generation. Kohelet knew this before any stagecoach or digital guru was born. What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. And no matter how hard you fight to stand out, your name, your voice, your story, everything will become an empty echo. The question is, are you ready to face it, or will you continue to buy the comfortable lie that you were born to be different? Do you remember the name of the last person who died in your city today? What about the second to last? Or the third? No, but perhaps you remember the name of an actor who made some movie 20 years ago, or a YouTuber you don't even watch anymore. This says it all. Even death, which is the most absolute event of life, does not guarantee a place in memory. Oblivion is the rule. Remembrance is the exception. And when someone is remembered, it's almost never for the person they really were, but for the reduced and distorted image that remains of them. The idea that every individual is special is a social construct made to keep the machine running. The world cannot admit that you are just one more, because that would break your enthusiasm for consuming, working, promoting yourself, and competing. Capitalism, as Mark Fisher would say, doesn't just need your time and physical strength. It needs your ego committed to its servitude. It needs you to want to be unique within a system that only works because everyone is replaceable. From a young age, we are educated in the aesthetic of the exception. The teacher says, "No one is like you." Cartoons preach that everyone has their special talent. Advertising links a product to your true essence. But all this is molded within the same mold. The cultural industry transforms difference into a mass product. Even your rebellion has already been packaged, labeled, and sold thousands of times. Cioran, who always mistrusted grand ideals, wrote, "Nothing defines us as much as what we try to hide." And what we obsessively try to hide is the fear of being just one more. It's the panic that if our job, our clothes, our hobbies are taken away, no one will be able to distinguish us from the crowd. Social psychology calls this the above-average effect. The majority believe they have better qualities than the average. It is mathematically impossible for everyone to be above average. But this illusion is fundamental to keeping our self-esteem minimally intact. It's a chemical trick, not proof of personal greatness. Julio Cabrera would call this the decoration of the unbearable. We adorn the void with stories that keep us on our feet. Life is a failed project from the beginning, but we prefer to believe that there is a secret and exclusive purpose waiting to be fulfilled. This belief is comfortable, but it does not withstand the shock of reality. Billions of human stories have already been told and forgotten, and yours is on the same path. Look at any abandoned social media network. Profiles frozen in time, last posts dated years ago with comments that have stopped coming. People who were once present in someone's life are now just digital images waiting to be erased. That is the anatomy of illusion, the desperate need to believe that against all evidence you will be the exception the world will never forget. How many versions of you have already died before this one that is here now? The child who believed the world was fair died the first day they were humiliated at school. The teenager who swore never to become like adults died the first time they signed an employment contract. And that young person who believed they would find themselves died the moment they realized there is no self to be found, only masks that are changed as needed. Identity is not something solid. It is a temporary file that time and circumstances rewrite constantly. You are not who you were 5 years ago, and yet you defend your own essence as if it were an eternal diamond. Julio Cabrera points out that to be born is to be thrown into an unviable project. And part of that project is to sustain a narrative of who you are at all costs, even if it contradicts itself in each new phase of life. This personal theater is exhausting because it depends on the gaze of others. The idea of being someone only exists because someone outside of you confirms it, validates it, names it. Cioran understood this trap well. We are not. We only represent. And the representation is so well staged that we begin to believe in our own role. Capitalism transformed this vulnerability into an opportunity. Today, the self is a commodity. You are not just who you are. You need to be your personal brand, your own product. Social media requires you to present yourself not as a person, but as a marketable narrative, constantly updated so you don't fall into oblivion. This creates an identity that is not lived, but managed, as if it were a company with a logo, slogan, and marketing plan. And here is the final blow. Even if you fulfill this role perfectly, you will be forgotten just the same. How many influencers did you follow every day and suddenly disappeared from your radar? How many musicians released a song that was everything for one summer and then vanished? This is how identity works in the real world, not as essence, but as temporary noise. Kohelet summarized it with brutality. The same fate awaits the wise and the fool. It matters little whether the identity you built was admired or despised. Both dissolve with the same speed when there is no one left to sustain them. The prison of identity is this. living to try to prove that you are someone when the very concept of someone is an illusion that dissolves into thin air. Open any social media now. Scroll through the screen. You will see dozens of people trying to be different in exactly the same way. It is a parade of standardized singularities. The same poses, the same motivational captions, the same unexpected trips to places everyone has already been, the same brave opinions repeated like an echo. It is the modern equivalent of a shopping mall. Each store swears to be unique, but they all sell clothes made in the same place. Mark Fisher called this capitalist realism, a system that not only controls the economy, but the very field of what is possible to imagine. Rebellion, authenticity, difference, everything is captured and transformed into a commodity. You cannot be outside the box because the box has already absorbed all the ways of being outside the box and put them up for sale. That is why the structure of singularity is not just a personal illusion, but a market operation. Personal branding, purpose coaching, authenticity marketing, all of this moves billions, and every time someone tries to escape by creating something truly unique, the system simply packages it, puts a label on it, and sells it as the new trend. Cioran said that there is nothing more harmful than an ideal, and the promise of singularity is a perfect ideal for capitalist logic. You will never fully achieve it, but you will spend your life trying, consuming more and more tools to get there. It is the infinite treadmill. The more you run, the more you stay in the same place. Examples are not lacking. Young people go into debt to afford an inspiring lifestyle that is nothing more than a showcase for likes. People turn their routines into content until there is no life outside the cameras. And when the public's interest wanes, the market simply discards that identity and replaces it with another. Sold singularity is like seasonal fashion. You are special until the collection changes. Julio Cabrera would see in this the cruelest of ironies, using the human hunger for meaning as fuel for a machine that never delivers the main course. Kohelet had already cut the delusion off at the root. The eye is never satisfied with seeing, nor the ear with hearing. It is the sentence that there is no definitive satisfaction, much less a permanent singularity. The market of singularity is that, a factory of mass exceptions, where everyone competes to stand out while following an invisible script. And the more you believe you are escaping, the deeper you are in the window display. If all humanity were to disappear now, the sun would continue to rise and set as if nothing had happened. The tides would follow the cycle of the moon. Entire galaxies would continue to collide millions of light years away. No star would twinkle differently because we were no longer here. And yet we spend our whole lives trying to convince ourselves that we matter. The cosmic scale does not forgive human vanities. The earth is a grain of dust floating in a shoreless ocean, and each human life is a microscopic breath on that grain. Kohelet synthesized this insignificance with brutal simplicity. The same fate awaits the wise and the fool. In the silence of the universe, there are no applause for genius, no mourning for mediocrity. Science reinforces this point with cold numbers. The universe is about 13.8 billion years old. Our species has existed for approximately 300,000. In proportional terms, if the universe were a one-year calendar, all of human history would occupy the last seconds of the last night. In that space, Countless civilizations have already been born and disappeared without a trace, and it is toward that same oblivion that we walk. Cioran, always implacable, wrote, "It is not the weight of life that crushes us, but the absurdity of being here." That absurdity is the inability to reconcile our need for meaning with the total indifference of the cosmos. The universe has no narrator, no audience, no set destiny. Everything we do is noise, and noise is only heard by those who are close. Julio Cabrera would interpret this perspective as the final proof of the unviable project. Even our greatest achievements are irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. The conquest of the moon, for example, was a milestone for us, but in an astronomical context, it was just a microscopic step taken by a species condemned to extinction. And the most painful part? Even on a human level, memory is short. Think of the millions who died in wars, pandemics, and catastrophes, most without a name, without a record, without a line in the history book. Cosmic indifference is just the natural amplification of human indifference. Cosmic uselessness is not a philosophical hypothesis, it is a mathematical and historical fact. The universe does not care, and deep down, that is the final sentence against any narrative of specialty. There is no stage for our importance to be performed on, because the play was never written for us. Have you ever shouted in the middle of a deserted place? The sound comes out strong, but it is soon swallowed by the silence. That is how all our actions sound in the universe. A brief noise that disappears without a trace, and what remains after everything is over is just an echo. An echo that does not carry an original voice, but a distortion of it. And many times, not even that. The empty echo is the final portrait of our existence. It is the realization that nothing of what we are or do remains as we imagine. Our gestures, words, achievements, and pains do not leave an us behind, but distorted versions, incomplete memories, and stories told by third parties. Even those who loved us will reconstruct our image according to their own narratives, and these, in turn, will also be lost. Cioran said, "To be born was my mistake." This phrase is not a defense of gratuitous pessimism, but the logical conclusion of someone who understood that there is no prize at the end of the race. There is no medal, no eternal applause. Just a silence that devours everything without haste. Kohelet already knew that the end of everyone is the same, and that everything is vanity. The difference is that he saw in this a reason to abandon illusions and live with lucidity. The empty echo is not necessarily an enemy. It is, perhaps, the only point of true freedom. When you accept that there is no eternal audience, there is no longer a need to perform. Life loses the weight of the obligation to be great, and gains the lightness of simply being. Mark Fisher saw in this a space to escape from the ready-made narratives of capitalism. Without the desire to be remembered, you no longer need to be a product. Julio Cabrera would complete this vision by reminding us that lucidity does not come without a cost. Perceiving the empty echo requires facing the vertigo of a world without guarantees. But once that abyss is crossed, what remains is something closer to honesty than to hope. And paradoxically, perhaps more human. The silence that awaits us is not unjust, it is simply inevitable. And perhaps the only mistake is to spend our whole lives trying to defeat silence, when the real victory is learning to inhabit it. In the end, our existence is fleeting. Me, this project, you, all of us. But in this brief journey through life, it is possible to give form to something with purpose. This channel represents precisely that. A refuge for reflecting without taboos, questioning illusions, and contemplating reality without filters. If this message resonated with you, if it touched your consciousness in some way, then all my effort in creating it has already been validated. If you wish to deepen your involvement, you can join the channel's member community. In addition to helping us continue to produce content like this, members have access to exclusive benefits, early videos, a closer connection, and the opportunity to participate in decisions that shape upcoming topics. It's a way not just to support, but to be an active part of our construction. There is also the Super Thanks option, which allows you to make a direct donation whenever a video feels especially meaningful to you, helping to keep this space alive and independent. However, I want to make it clear that the simple act of watching, commenting, and sharing already makes a huge difference. Do not underestimate its value. Every view, every word exchanged in the comments, every share is the encouragement we need to keep going. Whether as a member, through Super Thanks, or simply by staying here and participating, you become part of this echo that, although fleeting, is worth existing. And in this world where almost nothing lasts, perhaps the closest we get to being special is precisely by building something together.